Hello again. So we are embarking into our day one activities for the pseudo-immersive week that we've got going on here. And today we are looking at chapter 12 in the text, which focuses on stress management and resilience, and really approaches all of this from the client's point of view, of course. How do we help our clients address stress in their lives? And before we really get into that in a discussion, I want to make sure that we all know how to address stress and self-care in our own lives, because again, I'm very big on how could we tell a client or assist a client in developing new behaviors or modifying behaviors or enacting new routines into their life if we have not tried these things out ourselves, right? If we've not kind of experimented on what might work or what doesn't work on ourselves. Another reason for doing that is because, as you'll find in the discussion board, I want to know, you have to make sure that you're comfortable talking about certain things with a client, and the way that we often do that is to really self-evaluate how we address behavior change within ourselves, how we look at the world, how we view in this case, in this module or the sub-module, how we address stress in our lives. If I don't know how I can react to stress and how I can do that in a healthy manner, how can I be helping a client facilitate some type of behavior change, right? So we have to be introspective at the beginning in order to help our clients in the future. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is kind of looking at behavior change. And so I've got a TED Talk up for you guys within day one that talks about motivations to behavior change and associated discussion posts. So we're going to kind of be looking at stress, what you consider to be bad stress, good stress, because there's good stress, right? There's good stress in our lives too. There's stress that's innately motivating. One thing that just pops in my mind is getting married, kind of these big life events, right? Starting a graduate program, good stress, right? That's very good stress. Not a lot of people have the opportunity to start a graduate program or participate in a graduate program. So you could kind of reframe what you're going through right now is a good stressful moment, right? Because you know what will happen at the end, or what the motivation to continue with the program is, that you have a degree and better jobs and career opportunities later on. So there can be good stressors as well. So I want you to be able to recognize the different types of stress that may be available, just in general types of stress for anybody, as well as what types of stress you experienced in your life, how you recognize it within yourself, how you recognize when you are feeling stressed out, or when you are getting to kind of that boiling point in terms of being overstressed or overworked. I want you to be thinking about some behaviors that you might think about changing, because this is a good time. If you're halfway through your first semester as a master's student, and so that's an accomplishment. Some people don't make it this far. Some people don't even make it past the first week. So this is an accomplishment that you should be proud of. At this point, though, you're probably understanding that there may have been some things you didn't account for in terms of time management. It may have taken you a little bit longer to get into that groove those first couple weeks and figuring out a schedule that worked for you. You may right now be coming to terms with the fact that sudden changes in schedules really increase stress in your life, and those are things that we can't control. So things that are out of our control, that come into our lives unexpectedly, are naturally a point of stress for us. But the way that we deal with that and the way that we handle different stressors helps us understand stress and its reaction in our life, as well as helps us build some resilience, right, around managing stressful situations. So there might be some behaviors that you want to kind of work on, and I'm going to get you a little bit deeper into that realm too. And then there's, again, just going through some of the stuff for today, there's a couple of different articles I'd like for you to read. One on the Hungry, Angry, Lonely, Tired acronym, HALT acronym, which is a self-care tool. There's an article that just came out with a magazine that comes from the American Counseling Association, Counseling Today, on managing stress at work. work is inherently stressful. Stress is something that our clients bring to us all the time. They feel overstressed, overworked, not heard at work. Stress can be a point of, or work can be a point of stress just in and of itself. So the American Counseling Association Counseling Today just came out with this Managing Stress at Work article, which I think is really good. And then an interactive self-care guide, which I have done myself, and I thought it was pretty interesting. If you don't like I don't know if I would consider it foul language, but it does have some adult language in it. And then again, as I mentioned in the welcome video, I've got a wiki for you that will hopefully elicit a nice little discussion, an immersion day journal, or day one journal, I should say, and then an area for any questions that you may have. So because you were expected to be in immersion week, and because the bulk of content, well, not the bulk, but a good portion of content was supposed to come from the immersion week, there's going to be a lot of stuff within each day. I understand it might seem overwhelming. I just urge you again to kind of push through it. Use some of the time that you might have downtime now, who knows, reading some of the articles, going through the interactive self-care guide. I promise it does not require you to go out and be around anybody in public, although there is a point where it might encourage you to take a walk, which I think is still considered social distancing if you take a walk by yourself, possibly in the woods with no other human beings. But I like to use a little bit of humor in times like this. There's not going to be any grading in the discussions. That's my major point here with all of this. You were expected to be here on campus during the week. If you aren't participating actively in the discussion boards, in the observations, and wikis, and journals, and everything that goes into the content that I'm putting up for you, there will be a negative impact on your grade. I hope I don't see that from anybody. Again, as I said in the welcome video, if you are sick, if somebody in your life that's close to you is sick, you have to let me know so that I know these things, and I can work with you and trying to get work made up essentially. But you're not going to see any grading come out of the discussions. It's just an expectation to be participating as you would if you were here on campus. So any questions around that, you can feel free to ask me, and that will also keep everything a lot easier, because then if I added points to the things that you're doing this week, I would have to modify the syllabus, and the syllabus kind of stands as a contract. I don't intend to modify a syllabus unless I absolutely have to, and if I did that in terms of grading, it would be a nightmare. So just participate, and that's all I ask of you, and I promise I will get in and engage with you all as well. So how timely that we're talking about action skills for building stress, building resilience, and managing stress. My goodness, I am probably just preaching to the choir here when I say that it has been a stressful past couple of weeks. It continues to be stressful on a day-to-day basis because of the current coronavirus situation that we are all dealing with. So I kept the slides the same, but please know that I typically do this presentation the first day when we're first meeting, because coming into immersion week can be stressful. Coming into a new environment, being on campus, meeting your peers, that in and of itself can be stressful. And so I like to start out the conversation during immersion week around stress, because it leads to self-care, right? And we always are talking about self-care in this program, and really trying to hit the point home that you have to establish these self-care practices early on in your career, in your professional career, so that it just becomes habitual, because they're easy to lose. So in terms of stress, what do we know? Everybody has it. Again, a lot of this is coming from a place that's outside the coronavirus pandemic, okay? But when we're talking generally about stress, everybody has it. Nobody wants stress. Who wants stress? Typically, we don't want stress, right? What stresses our clients out? There's typical stressors, everyday stressors. Our car breaks down on the way to work. We forget to pay a bill and we get charged $35. Oh, that's stressful. Our bank account's lower than we want. It's tax season, and we know that we're going to get taxed a whole bunch. That's stressful. Other stressors can be health related, of course. Clients that are coming to us that have been recently diagnosed with a medical condition, or potentially they're entering into a recovery program, and that change is stressful. Stress, and the stress that our clients are bringing to us in that therapeutic setting, is somewhat dependent on our area of practice. In rehab counseling, the stress is maybe more likely to be around finding a job, needing to get a job, having just lost a job, or being somebody that with a newly acquired disability or mental health impairment that needs to have some assistance in getting back up on their feet, living independently. Mental health counseling can be different. It could be family related stress, it could be spousal stress, it could be work stress, of course, because that comes to the table as well. It could be the need to change some type of behavior and modify a behavior. It could just be that a person hit their breaking point and maybe they have been suicidal or attempted suicide, and they're coming to you now as that professional, that beacon of light that can be helpful for them moving forward. Stress can be good, it can be useful, it can be bad and impeding. There's different types of stress. On slide 3 within the PowerPoints, I have, well, you should be able to download it, I would think. Or I could just, YouTube is not letting me upload things into eCampus this week. So there is a video, it's a TED Talk on how to make stress your friend. It's a little bit older. I think I found more recently that a lot of people have already seen it, but it is useful, and it talks about how we can take stressors, kind of reframe our approach to stress, reimagine how stress can affect us, but then look at stress in a positive light, that it can help, it can help us be more alert. It can help us get past procrastination, right? It can help move us forward in a lot of different ways. The first thing that I want you to do this week, and the first discussion, is I want you to kind of review what you think might be good stressors and bad stressors. Reflect on this a little bit. Pull out your personal experiences. What do you consider to be good stress? This might look different for people. What do you consider to be bad stress? So take some time and reflect on that. And then I also want you to be thinking about kind of the acronym HALT, which came from the recovery community and is, I think, in a lot of ways based off of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some of you may be familiar with Maslow, some of you may not be familiar with Maslow. But so there's a kind of this hierarchy of needs, right? And so there are certain needs that that have to be met in everybody's life in order for us to be motivated to get to kind of a higher level of what is called self-actualization, right? And so kind of at the base level of another triangle in this hierarchy of needs, the base level is physiological needs. We all need air, we all need water, we need shelter, we need clothing, we need sleep, we get tired. So these are where these HALTs, this HALT acronym kind of comes from, right? Kind of moving up the hierarchy of needs, kind of the thought is that if we don't have those physiological needs met, then we can't get to the next level in the hierarchy, right? If we do not have food, then we will be innately so preoccupied with the fact that we don't have food and we need to get food that we can't get to that level where we feel personal safety or security, which is the next one up. We can't think about employment, for example, if we don't have shelter. How am I supposed to be looking for a job if I can't even put down an address on a resume? So in the world of counseling, we are constantly examining whether or not our clients have those base level needs met when they're coming to us. Because again, how can we help a client adjust their behavior, reach a goal that they're trying to set for themselves if they don't even know where they're going to sleep that evening, or if they don't know where their next meal is coming from, or if they don't know where the next meal for their children is coming from. So these are really important things that we have to be considerate of when we're working with clients. And again, as a precursor to the week that I would typically be having with you all on campus, I like to make sure that you all have those basic needs met, because oftentimes when you get into this immersive experience, you got a lot more work on your plate for this week. Things like sitting in a lecture room for 3 hours, you might get hungry. You might not have had a good night's sleep the night before. You might be tired. You might be angry because your significant other forgot to feed an animal, and that if you had been there, your dog would not have gone hungry that morning. Maybe your in-laws dropped the ball on picking up your kid at school, and as a result, your child was upset that day. Whatever it might be, you might be angry about something. Hungry, angry, lonely is the bigger one, right? Because because a lot of times we feel lonely, and how, again, unfortunately appropriate is it for us to be talking about loneliness right now, as we all kind of self isolate, self quarantine potentially. Hopefully none of you are under mandated quarantine, but again, who knows? I'm recording this a week before you would actually be listening to it. So loneliness is something that we truly are looking at now in our society, people being lonely as we kind of sit back in our homes and just kind of wait it out. So where was I going with this? So for your journal this week, I want you to be looking at those 4 key points and kind of the hierarchy of needs, and understanding that if going forward through this week, if going forward through the semester, both in school and outside of school, because I fully recognize that school is not top priority for everybody right now. If you are hungry, you're not getting that need met. How can you be expected to be fully engaged in the learning process? If you're angry, you're going to be distracted. If you're lonely, the motivation to learn more, to engage in discussions may not be there. If you're tired, tiredness has a massive impact on counselors, fatigue in general, and all of those things really do, but fatigue in and of itself, compassion fatigue, burnout, and even being so fatigued, like through sleep deprivation, okay, all of those ways that we might be tired in our profession, mentally, physically, every way that we might be tired in our profession, can all present an ethical dilemma for us. And so if we are not getting our needs met, then we are doing our clients a disservice, because we can't help a client meet their needs if we're not getting our own needs met, right? So that's why I want you to be, again, self-reflective in this early stage of this week, and really evaluating what you can do to make sure that you're being as healthy as you can possibly be, that you're getting in the right frame of mind as we move forward in our learning experiences this week together. If you're not getting these needs met, what better way to have that shown to you than through some of these activities? And then you're able to kind of remedy that as you move along. So where am I going with this? Oh, other different kind of ways to apply these action skills, right? For building resilience, for managing stress and stressful times. And these are all things that I hope you're thinking about how you could implement them with clients down the road too. So you could be, using the HALT exercise with a client during, your first session with them potentially. You could be looking at the therapeutic lifestyle changes, the TLC that we're often not giving ourselves, in terms of making sure that we are being physically active, because we know the major benefits of physical activity run deeper than just strengthening our heart muscles, right? The benefits of nutrition, that if we're eating healthier, then our mind is working better, our body is functioning better. If we're getting adequate amounts of sleep, what that can the benefits of doing that, although again, depending on your life, it may be difficult to get adequate amounts of sleep. But getting rest, sometimes meditation, could be a nice supplement if you're, getting less amount of sleep, if you're taking just some quiet time to yourself to let your brain rest a little bit. Engaging in social relations. Hey, I mean, look at, what the world is at today. We're engaging in social relations in a different way. We hopefully will be increasing the amount of time that we spend communicating with each other virtually. Me calling my dad, who's 2.5 hours away living on a mountain, isolating himself as he should at 71 years old, connecting with him on FaceTime, letting him see his grandkids, hopefully will be a bright spot in his day. And so we can engage in these social relations in different ways. So it's good to consider that too. And challenge ourselves cognitively. That's what I hope to be doing this week, is providing a little bit of a cognitive challenge for you all, in terms of engagement in the material, and immersing yourself as much as you can. And again, some more online work. And then thinking about even therapeutic lifestyle changes from a cultural perspective. Now, this might be a little bit harder to identify in yourself if you're, like I'll just use myself as an example. I'm a white middle class female. The culture that I identify with is, I don't know, white middle class female culture. I mean, there's not really a lot of cultural background that I engage in all the time. I definitely don't even identify with like Appalachian culture myself personally, even though I've lived in West Virginia. So that might look like something else to me, but for somebody who comes from a more robust cultural background, cultural health might be engaging with their community, it might be engaging with spiritual leaders, it could be engaging with their family more, because collectivist cultures, engage more intimately with close relatives and family members. So there are different ways that we could provide some more TLC to ourselves, and that we can be using all of these bullet points on slide, whatever I'm at here, 6, that you could be using these and kind of going through these with clients as you're working with them to help them to develop some more concrete ways that they could manage their stress or build resilience. So what can you do this week to practice some of these TLCs? A good area of discussion there. Other action skills, again, that you can show your clients, and the text does a good job at kind of reviewing each one of these in a more in-depth way, but these are things that you can consider doing with your clients. Now, we talked about self-disclosure already a couple of weeks ago. I have lost all track of time at this point, but self-disclosure, using it in moderation, using it at the right time, and using it appropriately can show genuineness. It can show that you've been through it, something that the client's been through. It can help strengthen that therapeutic alliance. It can be detrimental if it distracts from clients' concerns. So let's say right now you're thinking about counseling a client and they're talking to you about how stressed they are. You're using some type of virtual counseling app, maybe the Zoom that you pay for because it meets HIPAA compliance a little bit better. And then all of a sudden you interject and tell your client that you're just super stressed because you only got 18 packs of toilet paper and you really wanted to get 20 packs of toilet paper. So, again, that's just a sign of the times type example here. But that's not a good way to self-disclose to a client that's expressing to you that they're feeling stressed about the current situation that we're in. So we always have to be asking ourselves, what's the intent behind self-disclosing? Providing strength-based feedback, practicing autonomy with a client, allowing them to come to you with ideas. What's going to work for their life to decrease stress or to help manage or mitigate the effects of stress? Because sometimes we just simply cannot decrease the amount of stress in our life. We can't decrease this amount of stress in our client's life for sure. And we can't tell them that that's the answer. Just decrease the stress. Just eliminate stress. Everything will be fine. That's not what we can do. What we can do is listen to what they're expressing to us, that is a point of stress for them. And then we can help them develop concrete ways to mitigate that stress in their life. Day-to-day things that they could be doing to help reduce the effects of stress. And that, again, working with our clients, allowing them to do that allows them to practice autonomy. We can offer guidance in terms of dissecting the consequences of making a decision. So if a client is in between doing one thing or another, we could help a client say, well, what's the best outcome you see here? What's the worst outcome that you see here? And then you're able to kind of narrow down what the options might be with the client. Instruction in psychoeducation can be really useful. I think especially in terms of considering changes in behavior, and we'll get into that a little bit deeper moving forward, but in terms of behavioral changes, and I'll reiterate what's kind of being said in the TED Talk that you're gonna watch. It's not our place to scare a client. We're not there to use scare tactics. We're not there to, echo what like a Surgeon General's warning has been, or what the American Cancer Society says about something, or the fact that, they shouldn't be going out and putting themselves into an environment where they're more prone to use, right? That's not what we're supposed to be doing. What we are supposed to be doing is providing some education on the effects of certain behaviors, or, what stopping a behavior, what we might perceive or our clients perceiving as a negative behavior, what's stopping a behavior, how that could be a benefit to them in another way. So that's kind of a different way to reframe a situational change, right? Again, our role isn't typically going to be providing instruction, providing psychoeducation to a client, but it is part of what we do in counseling. Depending on the area that you might practice, you might be doing it a little bit more than not. Like counselors that work in the vocational rehabilitation system might be providing a little bit more education and instruction to a client through a job search process, for instance. And so Or if you're doing career counseling in general with a client, you might be providing a little bit more instruction on how somebody can go and search for jobs, do labor market running through labor market surveys, developing resumes, practicing interviewing skills, things like that might be more kind of instructional and psychoeducational than that kind of back and forth typical counseling session. So with that definitely took less time than I think it would in real life, but that's the way it goes in online instruction. So that wraps up what what I'm supposed to be doing for day one in terms of lecturing you guys. So I'm going to leave you to all the additional resources and the ways that you can communicate back and forth with each other. And I will see you all on day 2.